and the strike two pitch is hit back to the box, dribbling to second. Samuel on the bag, throws to first, double play. Fernando Valenzuela has pitched a no-hitter at 10:17 in the evening of June the 29th, 1990. If you have a sombrero, throw it to the sky.
That is the wonderful Hall of Famer Vin Scully on the call of the no-hitter that Fernando threw against the St. Louis Cardinals. Just going over some of his statistics over his career. Just close to 300 innings, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of his first 7 years, Fernando Valenzuela threw 250 or more innings in a season. Absolutely, by 1991, those 12 years, just exhausting how much this guy was throwing. And what a phenomenal run he had. 6 straight All-Star Game appearances, won the Cy Young Award his second year at 21 years old in 82, the full year. He finished third in Cy Young Award. So, but in those seasons, oh my God, 11 complete games, 18 complete games, 9, 12, 14, 20, 12. And that was in his first 6 years in the major league. So he was just pitching so much. And listen, the Dodgers were the first team to go from 4-pitcher rotations to 5-pitcher rotations. They were always putting out the best pitchers. And people may forget, even along the way in 88 was when Hershiser threw his 60 scoreless inning streak. You know, you had a streak, I think it was like 4 or 5 in a row of rookies of the year. And they've had so many rookies. The scouting department of the Dodgers should be studied because they have been phenomenal since I can remember. And I remember back in the 70s following them because not only an A's fan, I loved those teams with Garvey and Say and Lopes and Bill Russell at shortstop and Dusty Baker in the outfield. And Steve Yeager was my idol as far as because I caught growing up as well as pitched. And Steve Yeager was in the on-deck circle, took a bat shard in the throat. And he was the one who started with the neck gear to protect your neck because of that injury. But Fernando, when he came up, it was crazy because it was like all of a sudden he's here, he's 20 years old, he's dominating everybody, and nobody really knew what to say about it because back then you didn't come up to the big leagues till you were 24, 25 as far as pitching went. You threw 1,200 innings down in the minor leagues. You know, you did ridiculous stuff as a starting pitcher. And so he was one of the earliest youngsters I can remember. They also had Bob Welch, who was in the bullpen in the 70s before he became a pitcher. So when I saw Fernando in high school in 81 and 82, what I remember like about Louis Tiant was bringing your back to the plate. He used to look up at the sky and put his hands over his head, like Louis Tiant, and then come home and had a blazing fastball and one of the best changeups, unhittable changeups to right-handed hitters. Now, I went back and I looked. Barry Larkin hit 260 off of him, about 50 at-bats. Eric Davis hit under 200 against him. Chris Sabo dominated him. Dale Murphy had the most at-bats career against Fernando with 8 home runs. But he also struck out 20 times, or about 18 to 20 times as well. But Fernando, I don't remember him ever doing an interview, whether it was through an interpreter or anything, because he didn't really do that a whole lot back in the day. But always happy, always just like, you know, I don't know, like I said, a rock star, because back then Reggie was the biggest thing that I knew in the 70s and in the 80s. Not even the Big Red Machine, because growing up in the early 70s, Oakland won it 72, 73, 74. And like I said, and then the Dodgers would be playing the Yankees, but the Yankees would always beat them until 81. And so that's when the Dodgers broke through and won in 88, 81, and then won in 88. when I was in the major leagues. So, but just what an amazing career. He brought an entire country basically as far as players from Mexico, and then you just saw an influx: Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Dominican. And honestly, there was a wave of, like, I would say, like the way Jackie Robinson brought African Americans into the major leagues, Fernando brought in the Hispanic players from his time on to where we now see 35% of the major leagues is Hispanic. And a lot of it was because you started putting academies in Mexico, academies in Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Dominican, and you did scouting by allowing these kids to go to school from impoverished nations like where Fernando's from, get an education, play baseball all day, and then get a pathway up to the major leagues.
An impoverished nation is an understatement from where Fernando is from.
Well, he's in the desert.
He is from a town that I cannot pronounce in the Navajo community. It's really, the town he's from is 16 square miles. Him and his family, which consisted of, I do believe, 11 brothers and sisters. Him, his mom and dad, who are farmers in the desert, like Dibs says.
Yeah.
They're not farming much where Fernando's from. And then, like you're saying, the list of rookies of the year for the Los Angeles Dodgers,
it's insane.
It is insane, especially in the 90s. They have a run of 6 in a row.
Yeah.
And the way they discover this guy, like, how do you discover a guy like this in a time like that where there's no internet, you have no stats on like a unified Google Doc that is shared around the league.
Right. A pipeline.
So to find him is just ridiculous. You're so right about the complete games. Complete games, 140 or 113 through 424 starts. That's 25% of his starts are going to be a complete game. And like Dibs is saying, average on those complete games right around 150 plus pitches. Like, he's insane. He was an insane character. And my dad is a Fernando Valenzuela fan. He hates the Dodgers. He's not really that big of a baseball fan unless the Cubs are playing. And he definitely hates all teams in California. But he loved that guy. And it was, like you're saying, must-see TV when Fernando was on the mound or at the plate or whatever he was doing. He was a part of so many campaigns. He's on a Kellogg's Cornflakes box. His baseball card, I have like 20 Fernando Valenzuela baseball cards because he's kind of like Darryl Strawberry, which seems like he was in every pack. He was just a larger-than-life character in so many different ways for so many different communities. I know the whole city of Los Angeles, especially the Mexican population that exists that are Dodger fans, are in mourning today and this week. And I do agree with Al. I think this will be a wave of emotion that the Dodgers ride on, at least for these first 2 games in L.A.
The Dodgers did something that they would not do until Fernando in 2023. They had a long-standing rule that they would only retire numbers of guys that were in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Fernando is not. So in 2023, despite all that, they retired 34.
Awesome.
And, but listen, well-deserved. I mean, I always talk about it because I was there when Strasburg came to the Nationals, and I know how much more money per game they made when he started in Washington. Can you imagine how much more money the Dodgers made on his starts when, let's just say, those first 6-7 years? I mean, it absolutely jam-packed. I think it was 55 to 60,000 back then. But for people who've never been around Chavez Ravine out there, it's basically a big canyon. You go up a giant hill, and the stadium, like Michigan, is built down in a giant canyon, Chavez Ravine. And on another side of it, you actually have the LAPD Academy, where they train all their cadets, is on the other port. So it's a large swath of land that's kind of in East LA, and you have to go through the Mexican part of East LA to get to the stadium. So, and I'll describe it from 88 into the 90s when I played against Fernando. You pull up, and we would always take a cab from L.A. to the stadium. And, there's, on any other day, there's probably 100 cars that are waiting at the gates to be the first ones into the parking lot. Those are diehard fans, probably retired people. When Fernando was pitching, you couldn't get into. You needed to go the back way. Like I said, where the LAPD Academy is, come up the back parking lot to get to the stadium, because the 10 lanes of ticket lanes were jam packed. Get in. You're waiting to get in hours and hours and hours before they even allow you in the parking lot. Remember, it's an hour and a half before the game where they allow you open the gates in Major League Baseball, and which was always huge for us. Describing it from when you're the team at 6 o'clock and the games would start, let's say 7:30. So at 6 o'clock, we're going to take BP for 45 minutes on Dodgers. The home team takes it first, you take it second. By the time we were done hitting, it was packed. It was absolutely wall-to-wall people. And and I'm going to say 90% were probably Mexican or Hispanic speaking, and it was for Fernando. It wasn't just, remember, the Dodgers tradition, history, all of that stuff meant nothing when Fernando was pitching. Everything was about Fernando. So, by the way, I just saw this whole thing on Shohei. So, you know how they do all the different, like, cartoon and, all the anime and all that kind of stuff over in Japan?
Yeah.
They have postponed the start of the sixth season of some anime thing that's the biggest thing in Japan.
Wow.
So that they can show Shohei in Japan. And that's really the only thing other than Ichiro
right.
That I can compare this to, because, like I said, their world revolved. The Mexican fans that were Dodger fans, it revolved around Fernando's starts. Now, if they went to San Diego, they jam-packed that one. They'd drive the 6 hours up to San Francisco to go to Northern California to see him pitch up there. So it wasn't just at Dodger Stadium. Wherever Fernando pitched, it was like a rock concert. It was like, how you have Swifties? It was Fernando Mania. And it literally existed, and to see it firsthand, you wouldn't believe it, because you'd just be like, this is nuts. These people are like nuts for Fernando to pitch.
June 29th, 1990 is that no-hitter. A couple of more notes on that. Same day, just hours before, Dave Stewart threw a no-hitter against the Toronto Blue Jays. So the world of Major League Baseball's mind was already kind of, in a frenzy because of this no-hitter. The start before that no-hitter for Fernando Valenzuela was against the Cincinnati Reds, where they lit him up. 8 runs, 10 hits, only 5 1/3. The worst outing of Fernando Valenzuela.
Well, that was the year we won the World Series. So we didn't like the Dodgers very much.
The team that, and you can add something to this, the team that he throws the no-hitter against, the St. Louis Cardinals.
Who were badass back then.
Struck out Vince Coleman 3 times, once in the 9th inning there to finish off.
And one of the MVPs of the 81 World Series is Pedro Guerrero,
right,
who hits the ground ball up the middle that they turn the double play and end that no-hitter.
Oh, wow.
So it'll give you a little bit more like Dodger on the other side. So, and that was the thing. I had to face Pedro as a Dodger, then Pedro Guerrero as a Cardinal. And honestly, he was, people are like, who's one of your top? That guy, Pedro Guerrero, was a monster as well. And so, yeah, listen, back then the Dodgers had nothing but stars, dude. You had the 80s and 90s. You had Showtime Lakers. Then you'd get Gretzky in there to play for the Kings.
Right.
And then you had the Dodgers all the time.
Yep.
Those people have been spoiled for decades and decades and decades. And then last night you had Bronny.
Still going on, Dibs. It's still going on.
All right, let's get into Manfred, because I wrote down just some stuff off the top of my head. You listened to the interview on Dan Patrick today. You learn anything new from Rob Manfred, who wants to absolutely change the game of baseball?
Well, I got one thing I don't like and one thing I like. Let's start with the thing I don't like, and I think you'll agree with both these things from my perspective as well. But this is about the ABS coming through, automatic balls and strikes.
Well, the biggest thing that's going on right now is the automated strike zone. We continued the testing in the minor leagues last year. We have decided that we're going to test the challenge version. There's 2 versions of ABS. One where every pitch gets called in the umpire's ear and the other that's a challenge system. We're going to test this challenge system in spring training with major league players.
That's going to be fun.
Listen,
It's going to be fun.
I also have a problem with umpires. They've been lousy for the last decade, so you're only hurting yourself.
But you're taking away a lot of the. You're taking away more of the argument stuff that we find entertaining as baseball fans. Like, we have nothing left for these umpires to argue with the coaches on. And I know you can't argue balls and strikes.
No, that's another stupid thing.
But it creates the argument of not arguing. I don't know. I just think you're totally watering down the human emotion of Major League Baseball with this ABS.
Because he doesn't care. I mean, just to give you a couple things that I can't stand about him, besides the fact that he was the negotiator against us in the 94 strike before he took over for Bud Selig,
right,
is the fact that this guy doesn't appreciate what the World Series trophy represents. It doesn't represent the metal it's made of or any of that kind of stuff. He thinks it's just a hunk of metal. And literally it is, if you take it at face value. It's a lot of sacrifice to get to the big leagues, to have an almost perfect season to win that championship. And, to belittle that and then just start picking things apart that you don't like against the game, and then say openly, I don't watch a lot of baseball. I don't think I've ever heard Adam Silver say that or Roger Goodell. I always see Roger Goodell at football games. I never see Rob Manfred. The one thing I always saw, Bud Selig always went to baseball games. And commissioners have always been at baseball. This guy is not. Either he's afraid of being booed or he just doesn't like baseball. So that's the first thing that those are some of the things that irritate me. The Ghost Runner is garbage. You see how great it is in the postseason. Right. He's the guy who put the play-by-play rooms next to the dugout that started all the cheating scandals. He gave immunity to the Astros players. By the way, he was the one who gave immunity to the Biogenesis 14 players that cheated.
A-Rod.
So. Some of the things that he's done, it's not just I don't care about the pitch clock. I really don't. I think that's just something you could have enforced before that, and now, okay, that's cool. Bells and whistles, big bases, safety purposes, I don't care. It actually gives you bang-bang plays at first base where the pitcher has somewhere to go, the first baseman. I mean, there's just so many things you could say, I don't like this, I don't like that. And my biggest thing, though, is just recently is – the looking over at first base, making eye contact at home plate. I mean, the only engaging twice you're allowed, and then you have to, with 8 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, look at the hitter. Just some of these things are just idiotic. It's not baseball. The hitter's got things he's concentrating on. The pitcher's got things he's concentrating on. And on top of it, you got these ridiculous pitch comp things that half the time don't work. The guy pulling some piece of plastic out of his hat. I can't hear anything. Or even in the home stadium, some of the home pitchers can't hear because their crowds are so loud. You're supposed to get a crazy crowd. That's baseball, football, baseball, hockey. The part of being in the stands and having a fan base follow you that's the best part of sports. So I think this guy, he doesn't care about the experience. He just wants to move it along. Let's quicken up these games, get them over with, get them in, get them out. I mean, this guy should work at like a stockyard with cattle. The way he wants to just get you in, get you out, get you to the slaughterhouse, and get you to the supermarket. I mean, that's the kind of guy I see as the commissioner of baseball.
And he is somewhat of a lawyer. Now, I do think this is a lawyer answer.
No, he is. He's a very good labor lawyer. I'm not going to take that away from him.
Well, I think this lawyer answer, though, I kind of agree with. Now, it could be because I am one who gambles on baseball, but the question was posed, and I think there's a little bit of it here from Dan Patrick about the hypocrisy between the way Pete Rose has been treated and the way baseball has been married to gambling.
Yeah, but baseball is in bed with gambling, and so aren't they being hypocritical with Pete Rose?
Yeah, here's how I think about that. I think it's a privilege to work in Major League Baseball and to be a Major League Baseball player. Often, when you have a privilege, it comes with obligations. The obligation in this case is to stay away from gambling because involvement with gambling by people who work in the game and can influence outcomes reflects and presents a threat to the integrity of the game. So that's a category of people. Fans are different. The government, in this case, the Supreme Court, paved the way for legalization of sports betting. Fans want to engage with the game in that way. They present no threat to the integrity of the game or a minimal threat to the integrity of the game. And as a result, we have different rules that apply to those fans and have taken advantage of that business opportunity. I don't see any inconsistency between those two rules. I really don't.
Dan didn't press him on Ippy and Shohei at all in their gambling?
Very good point there, Dibbs. No, that was a little bit at the end of the interview, so I could give him a little life preserver on that. Right. But it is a very great point there. There was no Shohei gambling questions. Maybe that was a part of the agreement on the interview, but that is something that I was thinking as well. Is like, we just kind of have something or another. And I'm sure
we're gonna skip over that whole thing.
You're not going to get an answer from that, though.
You'll never get it. That's the whole thing. And to say it's a privilege again, you put down that privilege a few years ago with your dumbass remark about the World Series trophy. You don't take the game serious enough to preserve some of the things that have made it great. And so, talking about, all right, let's just take this real quick, and I know we got to take a break. Pushing the mound back a foot, 2 feet, whatever he wanted to do. You lowered, and he wasn't even around when this happened. This is 68, where they lowered it from 15 inches to 10. Okay, that's a large disparity in lowering the mound. And someone who's working with young pitchers, constantly getting injured. One of my guys has nerve damage. He hasn't been able to pitch for a while. I deal with this all the time. And making sure I try to keep my guys as healthy as possible. Can you imagine the injuries?
I was just going to say, Major League
6 guys on the Dodgers right now.
Right, exactly.
3 Tommy Johns, 3 shoulder surgeries. Can you imagine if you move that mound back even 6 inches? You'd kill arms. The guy is clueless when it comes to you're talking about integrity. How about the safety of the athletes? You don't even care about the safety of these pitchers anymore. They're chewing them up and spitting them out as quick as they possibly can. The way you've changed the game and a lot of the things around it. So, and you can't tell me, and maybe 10 years from now you can, that the pitch clock isn't injuring pitchers. You haven't. It's not about just pitch counts, velocity, all the other stuff. How about having to rapid fire pitch every 20, 25 seconds? You get back up on the mound and throw another pitch. So tell me how many injuries that you calculate with your analytics people that have happened because you put a pitch clock in there.
10 years from now, if it's good, I think you will see that report. If it's bad, I don't know. You're going to have to find it yourself, Tibbs.
Anyway, Ben's got the CT College Football Power Poll coming up next, so we'll take a few seconds here to compose ourselves and get that out there for you. We also have a UConn Pop Quiz coming up. More tickets to win at the top of the 5 o'clock hour. It's Rob, Ben, Kurt. We'll be right back on your afternoon drive here on Fox Sports Radio.
Cleaned up nicely, Route 2.